Hey, you. Oh my gosh, we're back together again. It's Mickey, and today I have this one. Today, of course, I always like every lesson because I'm with you. That's really the fun part of this. So today I'm going to talk about wounds and how it kind of preps you for your values lessons. So a lot of times I will talk about how our values, like the first thing you have to learn, which you've already done, because if you're in the app, this is lesson like 37 or something like that. And they might get moved around, but it's further along. And one of the things that I love about the style of teaching that I do is that it layers information in. So you can kind of come back to an idea later because you have more knowledge or you've just worked through your process longer. So an example is that, when you go to college and you get a tour of where everything is on campus, you kind of, okay, I got that. But it's a lot different to give yourself a tour after you've been on campus for a while. So you really see things very differently, not just like, hey, here's where the dorms are. Hey, this is where all this other stuff is, right? It's just a much more magnified view of what everything is. And values is like that. I could teach 88 lessons on just values. But, that's neither here nor there, right? That we don't need 88 on just that. Cause I am I'm at my friend Beth's. And one of the things I love about Beth's place is when I'm in Florida, and she has multiple houses. So sometimes when I'm there, I can just hide and write for a week. So that's what I've been doing all day. So I'm just as ready as you are to go. Oh, let's get in. Oh, let's get into the nice wisdom. That's what I love about the Night series, right? We can just be a little more. So let's go. Let's dive in, right? That everybody has wounds. And when I talk about that everybody carries a wound, and I remind people it's not because you failed or because you're weak, but because being alive is also means that you're going to be shaped by moments that we didn't choose. A wound is not the thing that happens. A wound is the meaning that your nervous system made in the moment that it didn't feel safe. So some wounds are going to whisper, some are going to shout, some are going to hide under competence, and some are going to dress up in ambition. And some wounds pretend that they're your personality. But all wounds have one thing in common. They are trying to protect you. And so when I think about a wound, I would just have you kind of look back. Now, you do not have to start journaling on this. Again, it's night, so we can kind of let this come in over the night, see what happens, wake up tomorrow morning, maybe listen to it again, right? So a wound is when your emotional system didn't have the capacity to process, or a story your mind creates to make sense of pain, or a pattern your body repeats to keep you safe, or a belief that you once protected, but now it limits you. So wound isn't a flaw. It is a strategy that in this case probably has outlived its usefulness. And, wounds are one of those things where I go, look, it did everything it needed, right? That you at some point needed safety and belonging and certainty, love, protection. And your younger self did the best they could with what they had. Wounds are not, I don't look at them as evidence of brokenness, but I do look at them as adaptation. And that's really the word that, if I were going to rename this lesson, I would have said it's adaptation. But people more identify with the hurt that they are carrying. And here's the thing about those hurts, right, is that even if you avoid them, they don't disappear. They will shape you. And the way that when I see people who avoid the really acknowledging that was a slice, that was something that hurt me, that they try to stuff them, but then they come up as all this other stuff, right? It comes up as limiting beliefs, capacity ceilings, emotional reactivity, perfectionism, overthinking, chronic guilt, self-abandonment, dishonest harmony. I mean, this is like there's a lengthy list, right? And when I think about that, I also think about if you ever have a shame loop or an avoidance pattern or just identity confusion, it interfering with how you're going to grow, of just emotional shutdown. I mean, there's so many things, but that problem with avoided wounds is they become this invisible architecture of your life. And that is really no fun. And so one of the things that I guess remind people about is we need to turn towards that wound. We need to face that that place within us with presence, that we want to allow it a chance to reveal its value that it was protecting. So behind every wound was a value. And before you go back in to do your values work, I just want to kind of go, oh, okay, where was I hurt, right? So someone who maybe had an abandonment is really going to value connection. Some people who felt the pain of criticism may value expression. Someone who has a wound in just chaos is going to value stability. Somebody who has this wound around invisibility, they're going to value significance. Someone else is going to really be uncomfortable with the amount of pressure that was in their life. So now they value freedom. When you start to understand that these two things are linked, and not in a creepy way, they are an informative way. That if I am someone who has been betrayed a lot, like those are where I'm carrying my scars, then I'm really going to value loyalty. If I came from a place of neglect, I really value care. Wounds are sometimes the guardians of your values, and that's a very different way to look at it. So when we embrace that, why I want you to snuggle up to the struggle up, right? The reason that I want you to kind of embrace that and really take a look at it is because that's the tool you're going to use to reclaim the value. And values work is the next thing up on the line, right? So you have this kind of transformational arc, right? Where you have wound, then you have wisdom, then you have value, then you have identity. So when we look at the emotional injury, then we go, oh, what's the hidden insight on the pain? And now we go, oh, there was a core truth that it was protecting. And now, right, number 4, identity, right, I get to choose. I get to choose the person that I get to become when I live with the value instead of the pain. And this is like, let me say that again. The goal is that you get to become a person, that you get to live with the value instead of the injury. And that's the goal, is the value and not the injury. The injury gave it something, that it gave you something. So when we look at prosperity in general, right, the ability to magnify, we got to have some things in order, right? We have to have emotional presence, cognitive clarity, being grounded, starting to identify our truth, right? We're trying to get our thoughts, our actions all in this kind of alignment. And when you have this wound and you aren't paying attention to it, you have to go, well, let me identify these and go, how am I going to heal these? And well, sometimes, sometimes you have to rewrite all of your beliefs. Sometimes you gotta, pull up your big person pants and strengthen your identity. Sometimes you have to work on your identity architecture. Sometimes you have to choose something different. Sometimes you have to expand your capacity. There are so many reasons why I tell people this is a long journey, because you are rewiring on all these different places, right? We're rewiring on an emotional, on a cognitive, emotional, cognitive, spiritual, identity, and behavioral wiring. So when I talk about wounds or these one part, they're all attached to all this other stuff, and it gets real clunky. And so high performers, no likey clunky. So in this part of just understanding that there's another thing here and understanding your values, I want you to understand what is often underneath those values, because everybody has a time that things didn't go well. And when they didn't go well, we did something, right? We did something. And that may have been, right? We did something that protected us, that allowed us to come in with some sort of way to be held in safety. Whether that's spiritually, emotionally, or physically, it doesn't matter. But it is really looking at what did that do when we have these things. Sometimes they're stupid. I mean, sometimes, like when I went back to do my own, there were some times where I'm like, wow, I didn't recognize it until I actually did exactly what I'm asking you to do, right? Like, let's talk about it, go to sleep, think about it again tomorrow. Because all wounds were doing something to protect you, and they couldn't. And when we look at a wound, it is a moment that your emotional system didn't have the capacity to process. It might be the story your mind created that made sense of something that was painful. It might be a pattern your body repeats to keep you safe, right? This is sometimes why our stomach hurts, or that I'm just going to throw up on some things. Or again, a belief that you once protected, but now it limits you. And we see, if you are not there at this part, because you're early in the process, that last statement's going to come back for you. A belief that you once protected, but now limits you, you're going to see a couple of those tumble into your process here. And the more you are rooted in stability, the easier it will be to have the strength to look at them. And that's really the part about why I want you to always stay rooted in who you are and what you are, and that you're in a process, and you're in a process that's going to take some time, is just be generous, be thoughtful, be loving, because this will be one of the largest pieces of work that you can do for yourself, because that's really all that matters here, is you feeling good about you gaining wisdom from your journey, you feeling the value of the life that you're living, you finding the tools that you need to build a set of values so you have language for it. A lot of what we are building is language. And language for prosperity or personal growth is really crummy. I mean, in English has terrible self-help language. And so when you're trying to really grow, there isn't a lot of language for it, but there sure is a lot of lists of like, you should do this, you should try this. Doesn't matter. You can try all those lists. If you don't understand the framework of who you are and what set you up that way, you are just really just kind of clearing stuff off, but never changing the underlying kind of printer. Right? It's going to keep printing it out. You can give it any command, but your framework is going to keep printing out from that framework position. And that is the end goal. our end goal is that you decide. You get to build that. You get to pick a pattern that is better for you. And that isn't about strategy, right? Strategy is something that's on top of framework. So you want to really think about the times that you needed safety, that you needed belonging, that you needed certainty, that you needed love, that you needed protection. And knowing what is the adaptation that you had that made those wounds survivable. And then really looking at, oh, let me chart them out. Let me write out what those wounds are. And then the next session, when you do core values, I just want you to have that body of knowledge within you and then see if they match up a little bit. Because that's really, it's just a curious piece. So with that, I'm going to say, yay. I'm crazy about you. I'm going to give you a big hug. Oh, and, hello. And it's always, it doesn't get lost on me. It does not get lost on me how important our time is. So thank you. Thank you for hanging in there. Thank you for doing your own work, but thank you for showing up to be just receptive, because I think that is in and of itself a beautiful piece of wisdom, is just being available for the lesson is powerful work. So with that, I'm going to just give you a big hug, ooh, snuggle, and say night.